Alrighty, we are officially live. In the audience that I see now. But hey, everyone, welcome. We're going to kick off right on time. We've got a ton of questions to go through today. But just wanted to welcome you all. So today is a special edition AMA hosted by the LAMINA1 core team. We hope everyone who celebrated last week had a really fantastic Thanksgiving holiday, and we're ready to keep building and are ready to keep building with us as we enter into a super exciting few weeks of development at LAMINA1. So the topic of this week's AMA is basically a big community catch-up on a bunch of stuff from the latest L1 offsite and the past 6 months of building and fundraising. We're going to give you guys a sneak peek inside our newly updated roadmap. We're going to lay down some ground rules for our upcoming follow-up community airdrop, and also just give you all just a preview of some exciting upcoming releases for the LAMINA1 hub and ecosystem post Avalanche partnership announcement. So obviously we've had like a ton of big updates kind of come out. I announced kind of last week that the roadmap is community roadmap in quite a few weeks. So we're going to kick off, but before we dive into the specifics, I wanted to just introduce co-hosts. So today, joined by CEO Rebecca Barkin, CTO Will Carter, our Chief Product Officer Gord Matty. And yeah, do you guys want to say a quick hello to the community as we hop on for today's AMA?
Hi, everyone. I hope everybody had a good, or at least those who had a long holiday weekend. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I look forward to getting into it with you.
Awesome. So on that note, I'm going to change the slides. We do have, before we kind of dive into community questions and a bunch of that other stuff, I did want to kick off with just like a quick update from our CEO. Rebecca's here with us. She's definitely, been hard at work on the ground, doing a ton of stuff in the background. I know that you guys don't hear from her nearly as often as you hear from Will, Gordon, and I. So Rebecca, I guess to kind of start off on the first topic of the day, do you want to just give us a little bit of a recap on the latest L1 offsite? We told the community that, the whole L1 core team actually met up in person a couple of weeks back to talk about kind of the future of LAMINA1, which is where a bunch of these updates kind of came out of. But would love to hear from you, what happened, what were its goals, and what's kind of our vision for the platform and its creators right now coming out of that offsite.
Sure thing. Yeah, so first off, the offsite was just awesome. Actually was the first time that all of us were really in the room together at the same time. You know, we a lot of times we'll have these kind of virtual working sessions, but when you're actually in the same room together, you just can move so much faster, especially when you're working on emerging tech and you're working on design challenges. You just can sprint a lot more quickly, and you can establish some really good chemistry, which I thought our chemistry was off the charts, so that was really exciting to me to see. um, the main focus was, in addition to just like spending time together, was to work through product differentiation, and who, our target kind of market is working, what isn't working. I gave the teams ample opportunity to tell me what I can do better as a leader, and talk about how we improve our sort of product management processes, and outlining like who needs this thing, like why another protocol. You know, I think that's someone phrased it to me recently as like, right now the state of blockchain and crypto is like you have a ton of protocols. It's like a vending machine with nothing in it. And so you have all this sort of process and infrastructure and protocols that are handling individual features, but what they're all sort of in search of like a really great market and a really great use case to put them to work, and for the UX to just become dramatically better. So for us, it was really important to get together and not only look at like, okay, great, how much engineering work have we done? What are the sort of tools that we're building? How are creators using them today? Are we focused on the right things? Um, and for who, right? So mostly we work side by side, but we had these kind of 1 to 2 hour focused working sessions. And like I said, the chemistry was really outstanding with the team. We did have a super fun little moment where a film crew came in. I can't say too much about it, but a film crew came in and captured us working as part of an upcoming documentary about the history of cryptocurrencies and the metaverse. And so that was really fun to have around, and kind of spoke to our visibility and brand awareness and the progress that we're making as a community. So that was really great, and I think exciting to the team. We also invited in some friends of the company and industry experts. I always think it's really important to make sure that the engineering team, gets time to talk with potential customers of the protocol and customers of the tools and platform that we're building, because it keeps us really grounded in what their challenges are. And some of these things, like, you can't really solve the music industry with just a single protocol. You have to actually understand how licensing works and why people get into bad deals in the first place, which has a lot to do with distribution and marketing. So we talked to people in music, we talked to people in film, we talked to people at some of the biggest gaming companies you can imagine. We brought them in and had these kind of focus sessions. And of course, we did some team building for fun. So we did a very flawed ChatGPT crypto metaverse quiz, which Baltazar won. He got a ledger for it. We did a group dinner. Member of the team got a personalized signed copy of their favorite Stevenson or soon to be favorite unread Neil Stevenson book. And some of our non-LA team members, it was super fun to see them take full advantage of the opportunity in LA. So they went to the Santa Monica Pier, and they went to a Kings game and a comedy club. And then we all went for a hike, because we are still a startup. So we got to be scrappy. We all went for a hike in the Malibu Canyons on Friday. I think the guys might have done some ski shooting on their own time, but I'm choosing to ignore that fact completely. Yeah, it was really great time together, really well spent, and we have we have some things that we need to focus on improving and for the coming year. So we walked away with some good action items.
Amazing. Yeah, I can personally attest that it was absolutely amazing. We just kind of having the whole team together was incredible. And yeah, again, like that's where a ton of these updates kind of came out of. It's always easier to make kind of like big decisions on where we're headed and what's coming next when we can all kind of like talk about it in the room. So obviously wanted to share a bunch of those updates with you all as well. I guess my next question for you, Rebecca, again, before we kind of dive into community questions, is just kind of a recap on like how the last year has been so far from like your perspective as a leader, from like a building, testing, fundraising. We get a ton of questions about the community around, who's invested in Lamina1, how's it going, noticing that, we've definitely stayed active and alive through one of the toughest bear markets to date. So would love to just hear from you a quick update on, how it's going, how you feel, how you feel like things are progressing since we last kind of caught up.
Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of building, fantastic. I mean, I think fundraising has been painful for everyone. And that's not necessarily because the quality of the companies or the ideas has gone down. It was like a matter of really inflated valuations for a while, kind of buoyed by the bull market. And issues with venture capital as well, just changing completely, and getting burned a little bit there with inflation. There were just, it became really expensive to borrow debt. So like the whole fundraising scene changed like pretty dramatically over the course of the year. And even how these types of companies get funded changed pretty dramatically. And then you're trying to keep up with with what's going on in the regulatory environment, and we intend to be here for the long haul. So we're pretty buttoned up on that front. And so I know sometimes the community is like, pushing us for more specifics and details on certain things, and we abstain from saying certain specifics just because we're making sure that we have all our ducks in a row for the long haul. So you got to kind of bear with us a little bit up front. But in terms of the fundraising, like we have, I think our investors, our angel investors are listed on the website, and we've been able to really pull that cash out and then bring in some additional investment. Primarily, the mechanism for that is safe, and that's pretty consistent in the industry. So it's been a bit of a rolling process. We are in negotiations now with a lead on the seed round, and we are refining our roadmap and our business model, our value prop and governance to like better reflect the maturity that we've uh, demonstrated over the last year. The market has been following us and watching our development, and the as well as like the enthusiasm of the community. So I mean, y'all being vocal and out there and coming up with great projects and being inspired by what we're doing really, really matters. And people have noticed. So I get notes from investors all the time being like, hey, we've been watching you guys over the course of the last year, and wow. It's really impressive how consistent with your comms and the commitment to supporting creators and being able to kind of build a platform that allows them to use this technology in a way that they haven't quite yet. So we've always been really focused on getting beyond just and growing beyond just our crypto friends and our degen friends, to make sure that this is that like the community at large can see the opportunity here with this technology. So I'll say that, like, again, in terms of building, fantastic. Everybody's watching. That is very clear to me. On the fundraising front, we're making progress. And I swear, as soon as we close this, you guys will know. You'll be the first to know. Um, and yeah, I mean, look, the market has been rough. I know we have a lot of people in the community and in our, sort of partnerships world struggling with some of the same things. And it's just what investors are looking for at this stage. Even, it used to be that like at the seed stage, you didn't need to have a ton of product traction. And I mean, companies in 2021 were getting funded with basically no diligence whatsoever. And I think we really got burned by that. So it's just been a full 180. Which is good because it's harder on us, and we didn't raise hundreds of millions of dollars and then blow it. So we've had to be scrappy from day one, and we're really well positioned to survive and pounce as soon as the market starts to take off again. So look, it's been really, really difficult, but it's been incredibly rewarding too. And you don't learn this much in a bull market. I'll tell you that much. So, really appreciate the community like sticking with us. And I know a lot of you are going through the same things. And I hope you're connecting with each other as founders and as entrepreneurs yourselves, because that's really important.
Oh, fantastic. And then finally, before we dive into community questions, I did want to ask, Rebecca, you also mentioned that you'd like to make an update to the community about launch timing. We did tell the community a week ago that we're not going to launch Mainnet at the end of this year, and instead eyeing a launch for first half of 2024. So would love just, a word from you on that launch timing, what we're up to in the lead up to that launch, and the kind of factors that we're considering in that sort of TBA launch date, when mainnet, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the Avalanche partnership, something to consider there and how we launch. So there were a couple of things we needed from them, and they've been really, really great partners to ensure that we could deliver on the commitments that we've made to the community and the things we want to solve. And they have been excellent partners in helping us to do that. So part of our timing is tied to some things that we wanted to see there, and I think Will and Gordon will go into this a little bit later. Some features that we're counting on and working on. And then I think the timing, it's influenced by a couple of things. one, it's strategy, right? So we're trying to launch with a couple of really, really strong projects. Not that like we love all of the creator work and all of the indie projects that we're working on, but we want a couple of big splashy partners that can drive visibility and volume and for all of us as a community. So part of it's due to some strategic timing with some big opportunities that we've got going on, so which are really exciting, and I can't wait till I can talk about it and it's inked and done and I can get all jazzed about it. Um, yeah, so I mean, basically, you're considering not only technical readiness, but you're considering like where is the market at, and which like kind of big strategic projects can we anchor ourselves to have a big coming out party. And so those are some of the considerations, and it's looking like it'll definitely happen in 2024, probably mid 2024, like Q2, Q3 is what we've been kicking around.
Awesome. All right. So on that note, thank you so much for the update, Rebecca. Super, super like informative and helpful, I think, to the community members. I know that we've been a little bit like we haven't like laid down like an exact date, right? But obviously there's a lot of considerations, and I know that we're all watching the market super closely as, metaverse builders and Web3 enthusiasts. Things are looking a little bit better. So, stay with us. In the meantime, we've got plenty to build. But before we dive too deep into that, I do want to start going into community questions. So in the lead up to this AMA, we got over 800 questions from the L1 community, mostly focused on kind of the big picture of where we're headed at LAMINA1. So it's definitely been a while since we regrouped with you all formally, and there's tons of good questions from you all in the survey this week. So definitely wanted to dive in. I guess to start off, I mean, we talked a little bit about the offsite at the top, Rebecca, but we did get a bunch of questions about the team in particular. After kind of posting that video overview. If any of you guys missed it, check out announcements. It's a place where you can actually see all of our faces for probably the first time. We've kind of like revealed admin reveal. But Vice Chi 1019 kind of asks, how many people are on the L1 team in general? We're pretty mysterious. And I think people are curious about who we are and how big we are.
Yeah, I mean, full-time on the project, we have 11, and then we have a handful of part-time folks as well that come in sort of on an expert basis to help us get over the hurdle on certain things. I do think like as far as the team and our kind of different areas of expertise, what makes us really unique there is that like we have both L1 engineering, like layer one engineering expertise, as well as operating system design expertise, which is pretty rare. And, we have both consumer expertise and enterprise as well. So understanding, it's really important to understand like what it takes to get enterprises like to use. And sometimes, God, they're prevented by like, those deals are held up by the simplest things like authentication and things like that you're like, oh my God, we have to use like, are we going to have to integrate with their old school authentication methods? But I think so that background is pretty rare and I think pretty unique to us to have both the engineering chops and the front end design aspect. That is a bit about the team's experience. Like me personally, I've worked at the intersection of emerging tech and entertainment for 22 years and led content and technical partnerships at Sphere, at MSG Sphere, at Magic Leap. So, a lot of that, as we move into the sort of immersive world, our team has a really solid mix of blockchain engineering expertise, as well as like content development, and particularly around, immersive and metaverse story development, transmedia. So I don't know if everybody knows that word transmedia, but people know that word. Is that like a
How do
weird
you
buzz?
define transmedia, Rebecca?
It's just like how storytelling has come to evolve across like to be multimedia, multi-format, multi-platform. So that you're telling stories across a variety of different mediums, physical and digital, all kind of interconnected. And Hollywood has like kind of struggled to get that down pat, and I think it's because it goes back again to how funding and distribution works. But there's such huge opportunity with this technical stack that we have in our hands now to be able to finally really revolutionize the way that stories are told across, VR, AR, web, gaming, and traditional media formats, film and TV. So I think like that combination of expertise is pretty rare and is unique to us. So
Amazing. On that note, if anyone's got any like really interesting stuff, I know like Alchemist 19, if you're in here, you always share me like the Starbucks Odyssey is like an amazing transmedia experience that you love. Like we love looking at that stuff because we're definitely like, in the background, in addition to building the core tech and stuff, obviously we're all like really going out and writing these pitches on, how to use the Lamina1 tech to empower like really awesome experiences, right? Like I think we'll get into this a little bit further, but right now we're really focused on like who's going to launch on Lamina1, like what experiences, what partnerships are we going to go to market with? And so like if anyone's got really cool, interesting case studies and stuff around that or any like really cool uses of Web3 and blockchain, like share those in our interest groups. We've got tons of them and like would love to hear from the community. I mean, as Rebecca just said, we're a very small team, right? Like 11 core people plus a handful of people who are building with us on the side, but obviously the community is like a huge resource to us. And so we definitely like, I'm watching the feeds all the time for all of the really smart stuff that you guys have. So quick CTA on
hey,
that.
can I
Yeah.
make one comment about that? I know that we have to move on, but I think like in terms of use cases, one of the things that is really exciting that we've started to see emerge with vengeance over the last like 3 months, I'd say, is when you look at like major IPs and franchises like a Superman or a Spider-Man or I mean, you could name it. You start to see like that it's really fragmented. Like even though if you're a super fan and you're trying to engage with this IP and you follow it all around in the course of your life, you're buying collectibles and you're buying tickets to the movies and you're buying merchandise and motion comics and streaming and all sorts of things. You have to go a million different places to do that. There's no like track record or kind of program that allows you that's really organized by the content itself. It all kind of defaults to networks and platforms that have won a distribution contract or have produced it or have licensed it to make collectibles. And I think that really punishes the fan. And so this is one thing that we've seen emerge a lot is that um, the ability of blockchain and this whole stack of technology to better enable fan engagement with the franchises that they love. And I think for creators, you're going to start to see over the next year or so all of these models pop up where people are actually leveraging blockchain in this tech stack to change the way the creative projects are funded and distributed because it just doesn't work anymore. It's pretty broken. And so when you look at like who can use this tech beyond DeFi, you want to look for places where people know that the system is broken, and they can really use it to their advantage. So it's got to solve the problem. And I think that is one area that we have noticed there is a ton of momentum around.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go into next kind of update. So I've basically got about like 3 big topics that I want to cover with you all today in this next 30 minutes, right? First is future roadmap. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming airdrop and finally about the Avalanche partnership. So to change slides and also just kind of call Gordon up to the up to the mic because I'm sure you'll be answering a bunch of questions around this. But future roadmap, getting a ton of questions from the likes of Sixender, FNord, Bauhaus USA, etc. Just kind of asking, So what is next for L1 and the LAMINA1 Hub? Like, can you give us kind of a preview on what to expect over the coming months as we kind of make our way towards that mainnet goal that Rebecca just kind of overviewed with us?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone, this is Gordon Matty here, head of product. Yeah, I think to begin with, touching on what Rebecca said, kind of to introduce the roadmap, like creators that are developing assets and content to tell a story, have to navigate kind of all of these different distribution platforms, and they have unique content types and profiles and interaction models. And this series of touch points that they have creates a lot of fragmentation in the creative process. It complicates monetization, and for the fan, it really dilutes engagement, and it makes it very difficult for the creator to have a consistent experience, but also for the fan to have that consistent experience as well. And so, for fans that want to connect with beloved creators, content, characters, stories, they find themselves in this like disjointed and frustrating experience. And building on kind of the power of a blockchain technology, we imagine a different world, one where kind of digital creatorship is completely self-sovereign, where creators own their assets and they own their presence. And really what we're building is a set of tools that can enable kind of people to have a unified platform where they can sell directly to fans and engage directly with the fans, ensure things like rights are correctly described, ensure things like royalties are correctly honored through creation and through distribution, and really kind of removing those barriers between the fan and the creator, and ensuring the journey is kind of seamless and rewarding for everyone. It's really challenging to get there though, because of the ubiquity of these different profiles and different metadata specifications for different asset types, and also distributing those assets across those different spaces. It's really, really difficult to handle all of that and also deal with rights and royalties and things like that in this kind of channel specific landscape. And so our roadmap to mainnet is really to focus on tackling these obstacles. And there are four key steps that we think about. They are creation, selling, distribution, and collection. And so what you're going to see coming up in the next couple of months, and we're going to have a few releases focused on this, starting in December and through to January. We're launching a studio tool, which is a place for creators to craft and publish their digital content. We're focusing really on kind of the intuitive, like an intuitive design process over complex blockchain jargon. We looked at a lot of the creator tools that are out there that force people to answer the question like, what smart contract do you want to use? And we think that this is just a really bad starting point from in terms of the creative journey, where really the question we should be asking is, what type of content do you want to create? Is it a podcast? Is it a music track? Is it an in-game item? Is it a film, et cetera, et cetera? And so by focusing on capturing like what it is that people are creating, it enables us to distribute that content in different spaces. The second thing is a lot of the tooling has been focused on marketplaces and trading. And so the types of information someone might want to capture has been kind of channeled into how does this best present in the marketplace to support people speculating and trading on an asset. But assets themselves and items that people create are really long-term items that kind of collect history over time and can be used in different ways. And so thinking about how we might encode royalties and clarify kind of ownership rights is really, really important, because we want to allow use cases such as permissible use for creating derivative works, for example. In the comic book example that Rebecca mentioned, imagine the community actually being able to participate in the creation of items supporting a story, whether that's the creation of an avatar or the creation of other collectible items associated with that story. The second step is selling. So building on our identity services, we plan to introduce something we're calling profiles that creates a consistent digital identity for a creator on the network. This ensures fans can always find the real creator, and provides a gateway for fans to explore and purchase offerings directly from the creators. And we'll support payments in all sorts of cryptocurrencies and fiat payments as well. So you won't necessarily have to use the L1 token or anything. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to the creator as to how they want to accept payments for a particular asset. The third step is distribution. So knowing that your audience is going to be in many different places or what we call spaces, we're enhancing the asset capabilities to be able to go into those different spaces. So we demonstrated this with space lasers. Space lasers was a really, really important test for us, where we created an example space. It was in the form of a game called Space Lasers, where people could play, collect assets, and then use those assets within that space. That enabled us to kind of verify and test the end-to-end process from the asset infrastructure through to collection and being able to capture all the metadata along the way. An example where we might provide much more powerful distribution in the future is, imagine a musician creating a track that they want to sell directly to fans, but they'd also like to get broader distribution on other platforms. So we'll enable them to distribute to other platforms like Sound and Audius, for example, in order to reach a broader and wider audience. And then the last step, collecting. Collecting an item really from the point of view of the fan is really an expression of interest and even investment in some cases with real cash, but even spending your time playing or using an experience is also an investment of value. And a lot of the experiences that people have today around NFTs are very kind of very inert. I collect the NFT and then it sits in my wallet. But what we really want to answer the question for someone who's collecting items is, what can I do with this item? What's happened since my last interaction? And on the creator side, that enables them to drive ongoing engagement if they have tools that can describe those activities, if they have tools that can help connect with a collective community and actually drive that engagement. And so we will imagine, viewing activity in the hub that you can do today will move from being very kind of blockchain oriented, where you're seeing a list of transactions, to be very contextual and focused around the content and the assets that you're collecting and interacting with, as well as the spaces that those assets are in. And so at the end of this, our goal is really to create this open platform for content creation, publishing, distribution, and monetization, and handling all of that complexity in the creative tool set. We're building on Avalanche that provides that base level consensus and security mechanism to ensure digital assets and identities are safe and secure. And really, we're building a stack of tooling capabilities and integrating protocols that we think are best in class to support that end-to-end experience for the creator and also for the fan. And so we think that this is going to reduce time to market and abstract complexity and enable creators to launch very, very quickly. And then on the consumer side, providing familiar payment mechanisms like fiat are a really important way to kind of onboard new people into this new world of digital assets. And so the roadmap here really reflects kind of like going through those steps. I won't go into every single detail here, but it's a series of releases that supports kind of getting to that end state in terms of having this kind of seamless experience for the creator and for the fan.
Oh, thank you so much, Gordon, for that overview. That's awesome. I'm going to be posting this revised community roadmap on all of our channels after the AMA so that you guys can have it on deck. I know the last time we actually published a roadmap, it was way back when we first released our Metaverse as a Service white paper. So we have gotten a couple of community questions kind of around, like from FNord 5850, why the recent shifts to the roadmap. Like, were there any kind of interesting surprises or challenges that kind of like helped inform this latest iteration? I know you just walked us through like your very specific approach, being like, okay, here's what we're trying to build. Like Rebecca kind of overviewed like how we're trying to hit the market with this roadmap when we do release Mainnet. But is there any kind of insight that you can give community members around, the shifts to the roadmap, why we're kind of refocusing in this order?
I would say it's not really a shift to the roadmap per se, but more focusing the camera and actually moving from something that was very blurry into something that's much more clear for us. And that's really off the back of having conversations with creators and really understanding what their challenges are and what their needs are. And so the roadmap really reflects us getting clearer on kind of what it's actually going to look like to build a product that can support and solve these problems that creators have. I will say, one recent event, is the Avalanche partnership, and that does, have an influence on the roadmap and a shift in how we think about launching. But really, that's very much kind of like an operational and integration scope of work that's certainly incremental, and we're going to be one of the first to be taking advantage of some new capabilities on the Avalanche network. Specifically, I won't steal your thunder, Will, for later if you want to talk about this, but specifically the Hyper SDK and the ability to move tokens across any subnet within Avalanche without the developer having to do anything. So these things actually make things a little bit easier for us as well, potentially in terms of launching, subnets and not only the subnets that LAMINA1 are going to launch, but also those that creators might want to launch as well within the LAMINA1 subnetworks.
Awesome. We also, obviously, as part of this kind of rollout strategy, in addition to being able to, upload, collect, create items on LAMINA1, we also obviously have some spaces that are coming up. So we released Space Lasers, which was kind of our first demo experience that had kind of a lot of the frameworks around interoperability and metadata that we're thinking of. But wondering, Gordon, if you could give us a little sneak preview or talk a little bit about, some of the upcoming spaces that we'll be testing together, along with, sort of like what kind of projects we're looking to collaborate with in this kind of upcoming phase as we build out this roadmap.
So we're broadly focused on kind of entertainment as a category. So think of things like gaming, music, film, TV, and fashion as well. I mean, fashion has a lot of cultural, bilateral cultural influences in those other spaces, those other areas as well. So, so we're talking with potential Betanet activation partners to launch spaces on the network and of varying different types across all those different asset classes, because those will push the platforms in different ways. In terms of kind of immediate upcoming spaces, there is going to be one launching, I think, in December, which again is expanding kind of like the concept of Space Lasers. It's a gaming based experience that we're using to really understand what does utility and use of a asset look like, and how do we keep track of the history of an asset? How do we capture its usefulness and its value through actual use, and how do we encode that within the asset? So think of imagine kind of a gaming experience where there's a story that's being told, and how do we capture that story in the assets that people are collecting within that experience? And so the nature of the different experiences means that we will also be able to potentially, we're also looking at how we can move assets between those experiences as well. So imagine collecting an asset in Space Lasers and then using it in another space, and things like that. But this is an area that we're really actively trying to ramp up now as we look to Mainnet and looking for great partners that we can launch projects with. I think so really there are kind of two classes of projects right now that are really suitable. One is projects that might be in kind of early alpha or beta phases that would benefit from distribution to the LAMINA1 community, adopting the capabilities that we're offering. And so we'll see more of those. And the second class are, I would say, more kind of established IP holders and creators that already have a strong point of view of what they want to create and would want to launch that with us around our mainnet launch.
Amazing. We also have kind of a question from Machiavelli and a bunch of other people who are just kind of asking, like, what's like the best and most direct way to get in touch with the L1 team about a partnership? So I'll take this one since I'm the one who kind of like fields a lot of these requests and sorts through them. But we've essentially got kind of three ways that you can kind of get involved with us. First of all, we've got an application form for our early access program. These are for more kind of like companies and partners, again, who have these like experiences in early alpha or beta who are interested in kind of launching spaces or asset collections. Those are great if you're a metaverse builder, you've got a company or something that you want to partner with us for. We've also got a get involved form more generally for individual builders. That kind of covers everything from press requests to event collaborations to ecosystem collaborations, all of that stuff. So I'm going to share that. And then also we do have an email that we share pretty regularly in all of our white papers, our documentation, etc. That's just ecosystem@lamina1.com. Like if you've got a good pitch or a proposal that you'd like to share with us, etc., like please fill out those forms. I check them every week. We do a pretty big sort of review of kind of new partnerships and are definitely working to onboard. So if you're interested in getting involved, or you've got a space or an asset collection, or you'd like to partner with us in any way, those 3 channels are kind of the best way to get in touch. I will also say our weekly surveys, we release like kind of a survey on Hub feedback. I think 2 weeks ago, where we asked people, you know, what kinds of experiences or spaces are you interested in launching or experiencing on Lamina1? And we did a huge kind of compilation of all of those ideas and are looking at all of them being like, wow, okay, a lot of people want to launch like a sick haunted mansion experience, and we've got some other people who are interested in launching like smart contracts or like interesting meme tokens. Like all of those surveys in general too, like we look at all of that data to see, you know, how can we build a platform to support the needs and desires of a lot of the creators who are helping us build. So again, if you want to get in touch with us about a partnership or getting involved with Lamina1 in any way, just fill out those forms, with the caveat knowing that, you know, we are a team of about 11 people, so it may take us a little bit to get back to you, but know that like we are reading them, we are reviewing them, and we're super hungry for ideas and collaborations right now. I think next up, I'm actually going to jump forward to our upcoming airdrop. I really want to make sure that we can give kind of an overview of that. And this is when I'm going to call Will to the stage to give us a kind of recap. So just for those who missed it, we have an upcoming 2.0 airdrop that'll be happening this week. We've got it planned for kicking off this Wednesday. This is with the 10 million unclaimed tokens that were not claimed in our first community airdrop. We had some extras. We knew that not all of them were going to be claimed, and we promised you guys that something fun, quote unquote, would be done with the unclaimed tokens. So Will, Peter, and I have been scheming over the last couple of weeks, trying to put together a plan on how to redistribute those coins back to the community. So Will, do you want to give us all a kind of quick overview of what to expect for the 2.0 airdrop that'll drop a little bit later this week?
Absolutely. You guys can hear me, right? Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Spoken in a while. Perfect. Yeah, so as Casey was saying, we are kind of looking at this second airdrop kind of as another way to put more coins in the hands of as many community members as possible so that you can start engaging with the chain. As if you're new to Lamina1, kind of one of the reasons we've done these airdrops, they are Betanet tokens, so these aren't planned to be like one-to-one redeemable for Mainnet tokens at launch. So I just want to make that clear. Instead, what we're kind of using them for, the airdrop specifically, and the way that you use these tokens is to try to get a sense of community engagement. So see what you guys do with the coins, see how you engage with the protocol and the infrastructure with those coins, and then sort of use that as a parameter in, you know, what we hope is an eventual mainnet airdrop function. So we would use basically your activity and what you do with these coins as input into how we distribute any of the tokens at mainnet. This particular, so that first airdrop was really meant to incentivize the people who had engaged the most. And so we had like a pretty heavy curve towards, you know, our highest engaged community members getting a lot more coins than say people in the middle or at the end of the engagement curve. And we had a couple of different parameters by which we measured that engagement. And if you're interested in what those were, you can go back. And I think we walked through it in the prior AMA. But for this particular airdrop, we wanted something that was more of an even distribution so that people who were new to the community were able to get their hands on some tokens. And we could like start seeding the ecosystem and the community for upcoming spaces and ways to utilize those tokens. So one thing we want to do once more spaces launched is give everyone the ability to interact with those spaces. So we got 10 million unclaimed tokens from the first airdrop, which was 30 million tokens total. So about a third went unclaimed. We are going to be distributing half of those back to you guys. A little bit more than half, actually, about 6 million. 5 million for everyone who has already claimed. So that means you were eligible for the last airdrop and you claimed before the deadline. You'll be receiving, it's just going to be a completely even split. So we're just going to split it across everyone who claimed in the last airdrop. That comes out to about 200 tokens each. And then we've created roughly 900,000 to 1 million tokens, and we've put them in what we call bonus packs. And those bonus packs, as you see in the slide, are to incentivize new members. So if you're a new member who wasn't here before, you'll get a special bonus. Our Betanet validators, who've been running, some of you guys since testnet early this year or last year, are going to be getting some extra tokens in a bonus pack as well. White paper translators, so everyone who helped us translate the white paper and any of our content into other languages, you guys will be getting a bonus. Anyone who's participated in some of our competitions, to include the original NFT creator competition that we did when we had our first NFT marketplace playground, and then the most recent Space Lasers participants, you'll be receiving a bonus as well. And then, of course, everyone who attended the Emergence workshop will be receiving a bonus. And we have some other kind of like side bonuses. So, one thing we really wanted to incentivize is any of you have kind of taken the initiative to actually launch something on the testnet or the Betanet and kind of get users and start playing around. We've put together a pretty big bonus pack for you guys. So if you've launched something that's pretty compelling or that's had any use, let us know. And we've allocated some side tokens for that as well. And we have at least 1 or 2 projects that have done that. Yeah, that's for you, Ed Keys. The vesting details. So the details on this, like I said, the goal of this is to get this into as many people's hands as possible. So we've extended the claim period from 1 week to about a month. So from 11/29 to 12/29. We will reserve the right to shorten that claim period slightly if for whatever reason we want to do like one last airdrop before the holidays. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if we wanted to, then we might kind of reclaim any of the ones that haven't been claimed yet. I think the plan is to still give you at least 2 to 3 weeks to claim these. But the vesting details are also going to look a little different. If you remember, the last airdrop had about a 1-year vesting period. This one is going to be a shorter vesting period of only 60 days, which means you're going to get more tokens per drop. Relatively speaking, and then we're going to shorten the unlock periods to 24 hours. So say you win 200 tokens, those 200 tokens will unlock on a daily basis over 60 days. And then, as always, keep an eye out in the Discord for any announcements that are coming up, instructions on how to claim. The airdrop bot isn't expected to change in any specific way for this particular airdrop, though you may see additional vesting schedules when you type in your balance command. But otherwise, it'll work exactly like the last one. You'll go to the Discord bot for those of you who are new. If you type /balance, airdrop -balance, I believe, it'll tell you if you have any airdrops available to you. And if you do, you can type airdrop claim and claim it to your hub address. And then on a daily basis, you'll be able to type airdrop -withdraw to get your coins out and start using them.
Thanks so much, Will. Yeah, super good overview. And just as a recap, I will be putting all of this information into a blog post when we do release the airdrop. So it's super clear to community members who didn't listen to the AMA, or for people who English is not their first language, just laying out all of this stuff in a post. So definitely stay tuned for that when we do the drop. Will and I are going to be making our final data pulls this week. Do have some follow-up questions that I want to address before we jump to the next big topic, but tons of questions both in the chat and in our previous kind of surveys. Who's eligible, on what criteria will the airdrop be based? So I'll answer this one, but as Will said, eligibility is actually going to be everyone, all community members. So the last airdrop, we just had community members who were active before we made the big airdrop announcement. Obviously, goal there is we want to be rewarding our most engaged community members, right? And not just like rewarding, or at least rewarding them more than, you know, new joins or potential bandwagoners or bots. But we are doing this one a little bit differently, where everyone is going to be eligible. So if you're a new community member who's joined us within the next couple of months, you'll definitely be eligible. We've got a special bonus pack for new members that we'll be able to distribute, but also everyone who already claimed will get about 200 tokens, and then people who've participated in our latest sort of Betanet engagement initiatives, from our workshops to our latest space lasers testing, you'll also get bonus packs as well. So it's kind of a hybrid of like the engagement-based tracking for the first airdrop that we did, as well as just a way to get more tokens into every single community member's hands in advance of some upcoming releases that we have coming up. We wanted to make sure that that was the case. And that, you know, new community members weren't just able to only access, you know, the 4 tokens that you can get via the faucet. Like we've definitely heard people be like, how do I get more tokens than this? So wanted to address that. I do want to also kind of go over, we've got a couple of questions from the likes of Margrieve and M. The Hague that are asking, you know, what'll be the next use for L1 Betanet tokens? Like, okay, so I'll get like maybe 200 Betanet tokens in this latest airdrop. What can I use these tokens for? I know our mods kind of share this graphic over and over again, but I'd love a quick overview from, you know, Will or Gordon, if you guys want to hop on and like, what do you use these tokens for? Like, what can you use them for beyond just, you know, simple testing transactions or Persona Collective stuff?
Yeah, I can get it kicked off. So yeah, the first one is pretty straightforward, which is basically running the infrastructure of the platform in the form of validators and delegators. Currently, we've really limited the validator ecosystem to invite only. It's very hard to gather enough tokens to become more like a self-hosted validator or a self-staked validator. So by getting more and more tokens or pooling tokens, as a couple of you have proposed, you could essentially create your own kind of permissionless validator in the network. The other way to participate in the infrastructure of the network, if you don't want to operate a validator, is to delegate on existing validators. So we do have that, I think 30 to 40 currently online validators within our community who are up and running and able to receive delegations. And basically what that means is you can lock up some of your coins and delegate them onto a validator, and in return, you'll receive a portion of the rewards that they earn. And so this is a way for you to secure the network economically while also receiving some rewards for tokens that you're not using. So if you're not going to be using coins, you know, for the next week or 2 to 3 weeks, it might be a good way to kind of earn some bonus tokens just by staking them. And you earn like, depends on the validator, and maybe we should have a little bit of a workshop on how to navigate that aspect of the platform. But yeah, it's currently in the original staking wallet, I think it's called at the moment, which was the first wallet we had live during testnet before we introduced the hub. There's a tab in there called Earning, and you can check, I believe it's in the LAMINA1 docs online. You can get some instructions for how to interact with that tab and start earning extra tokens. Moving on to like the actual platform and how to actually use these coins within the platform outside of operating infrastructure. We do have the LAMINA1 naming service, which a lot of you have already used to buy premium usernames. We did limit the cost of those to be very, very inexpensive early on, just so that as many people as possible could jump in, start purchasing them, and also so we could kind of get a sense for what buying patterns emerged. So do people try to buy a bunch of usernames? What types of usernames? What are the structures? Like which ones are more in demand than others? And that way we can start building out like a more comprehensive pricing model for the LAMINA1 naming service, specifically how much it might cost for different types of usernames. So that's something you can continue to spend tokens on. It's currently one L1 for each premium username, but in the future that could change and we could have something that's a little bit more comprehensive based on the type of username you want to purchase or the length or how in demand it is. The items tab currently does not support this, but eventually will, which is like a sort of marketplace or storefront for you to spend L1 tokens to purchase new assets, new avatars, new PFPs. And this ties into the Creator Studio that Gordon was talking about, which is, on one hand, we're going to be making it easier, closing that gap between the infrastructure and the creator, and making it easier for them to deploy their creations and distribute those creations to a community. And so, they'll be able to set up storefronts. They'll be able to easily mint new media assets with pricing, royalty, rights structures, and then you as a user will be able to use L1 tokens to purchase them. And then, we have all these spaces coming up. The next one coming up very soon, actually. And again, we're looking at ways for you to leverage the L1 tokens within those spaces to either get bonus items or to otherwise drive engagement in the space. But again, we're looking for new ways to kind of like engage with you guys, the community, and get you guys more active and utilizing the infrastructure and the network. So there'll be new ways to use these tokens as time goes on, especially with the emergence of the Creator Studio.
Thank you so much. We are definitely running over a little bit. So I did want to address before we kick off also just a couple of questions around the Avalanche partnership that we announced. And kind of what to expect around that before we kick off. Now, just as a note, next week actually as a sneak peek for the community, I'm going to be doing a whole education week on Avalanche where we can probably in an AMA where we can dive a little bit deeper into all of this stuff. But I think in general, I mean, the TLDR is a couple of weeks back, LAMINA1 announced that we are going to be launching with Avalanche. And we've got a bunch of things that are kind of coming up in advance. So I guess to kind of kick off, just Will, could you give us a quick overview of like, what is this Avalanche partnership? What does it mean for LAMINA1? Is LAMINA1 still a blockchain of its own? And why did we decide to partner with them? I feel like those are like the most common questions we've gotten from the community after kind of making the big announcement a few weeks back.
Sure, absolutely. So as many of you already know, prior to this partnership, we were already using Avalanche technology. So we had forked the original Avalanche code base, which comprised of their 3 primary blockchains. And we were making some, minor improvements to the chain, but mostly focusing on improving the tooling for the chain. And again, as Gordon and Rebecca were mentioning, kind of closing that gap between the creator and the infrastructure and the community that they're trying to reach. So basically less about like providing blockchains as a development environment and more about helping creators leverage that development environment to reach their audience. So it made a lot of sense for us to actually work with Avalanche rather than kind of compete with them to continue developing the core code base. So what does it actually mean in terms of this partnership? It really means we can refocus our development resources away from developing the core chain, which again is not really our primary product focus, and instead on enabling the creators to access that chain. We are in close contact with the development group at Ava Labs, and Patrick and the rest of his team are doing a really great job at sort of extending and improving that code base. For a lot of the features that we were actually working on, they are also working on. And so it didn't really make a lot of sense for us to duplicate that effort. Second, it sort of means that we get to tap into an existing ecosystem of tools, markets, bridges, and even other projects on day one of Mainnet. And this is really important. You know, I've launched an independent blockchain in my previous project from scratch, and lining up that ecosystem of tools and on-ramps from scratch is just a massive effort. So having it on day one of Mainnet really helps us keep momentum up through those early days of the project, and really kind of reach as much of the ecosystem as possible, both for creators and for other projects out there. So with this partnership and using something they call Avalanche Warp Messaging, we'll be interoperable throughout the Avalanche ecosystem, and we'll be able to offer bridges to other major layer one platforms out there, while also offering kind of richer tools on the blockchain side of things to our community of developers and creators. So if you go to Avalanche, there's some pretty rich Avalanche specific or Avalanche optimized maybe explorers and wallets that you'll be able to adopt now. And it's not something we see maybe the end user of these experiences that we hope to launch actually using on a daily basis. That's kind of what the hub is for. But for those of you who are power users, who are either developing on the platform and need kind of richer detail and, you know, a deeper window into what's going on behind the scenes, you'll have those tools available to you instead of like the current Explorer and the current staking wallet. So that'll help make your lives a lot better as well. And then I think it also, another big point is when we talk to a lot of mainstream partners and large brands, a big risk for them is developing on newer nascent blockchains because there's already an inherent risk in developing in Web3 from a regulatory standpoint, or because the technology is so new. So what this partnership enables us to do is sort of piggyback off of, you know, the years of robust operation that Avalanche has had, and kind of mitigate some of the risk factors that allows larger brands or partners to come on into the Avalanche and LAMINA1 ecosystem. It does not mean that we're not a blockchain or an independent blockchain. We will still have at least one independent blockchain, if not actually a handful of them. And what it does mean is those blockchains will be immediately interoperable with the rest of the Avalanche ecosystem. I'm trying to think what other major. Are there any other community questions?
I think a big question that we're getting from like Jackal Girl and from the community are like, should we be looking to like acquire AVAX tokens? Like, to what extent with Avalanche's own native token, like, will it come into play, if at all?
Yeah, this is actually a really good question.
Yeah.
To the largest extent possible, we want to mitigate the requirement that users adopt multiple cryptocurrencies to utilize the core product of LAMINA1, which is to jump through spaces to manage like you know, a universal identity, to collect these assets. So to the largest extent possible, we're going to try to make that make it a requirement only to hold LAMINA1. AVAX itself will only really be required if you want to run a validator on the Avalanche ecosystem. Within the Avalanche ecosystem, which is a requirement to also be a LAMINA1 validator. And we're going to talk about that in a later AMA, about kind of as we work with the Avalanche team to define how our validator community can migrate over into the Avalanche ecosystem. We'll have an AMA that kind of defines what that'll look like. But for the end user, you really don't need to have a lot of AVAX to continue to use LAMINA1 as it enters the Avalanche ecosystem. The primary, I guess, touch point for you as a user, rather than as an infrastructure provider, would be if you want to, say, take an asset out of LAMINA1's sort of sub ecosystem and put it on the Avalanche C chain, which will have the benefit of getting you access to some of those bridges I talked about, any of the DeFi markets on Avalanche C chain, sort of any of the existing Avalanche community. If you want to interact with it on the AVAX C chain, you will need some AVAX coins, but it's not a lot to pay for transaction fees. One of the kind of good things about Avalanche, and the reason we chose the technology, is that transaction fees are fairly low. So no, I don't think there's any real reason to, purchase or try to collect a bunch of AVAX unless your goal is to be an AVAX validator, in which case there is a 2000 AVAX requirement, but they are kind of introducing some ways to make that a little bit more approachable for someone who doesn't have the capital to purchase 2000 AVAX, which they call kind of like validator rent. Again, that's something that's a future feature that we're working with them on, but or waiting for them to develop so that we can adopt ourselves. But again, it's not something most of you should have to worry about.
Thanks so much, Will. I also just wanted to make, I guess before we kick off, we did talk about this a little bit, and we've got a lot of questions about like, okay, like I applied to be a validator, like what's onboarding going to be like? And I do want to make an announcement, and I'll make this also more widespread to the community again after this AMA. But because of the transitioning that we're going to have to do with validators from January to February in advance of Mainnet and with the Avalanche transition, I do want to say that our validator applications are definitely going to be on hold until we relaunch the program. We're not going to be bringing any new validators on until we make that transition, obviously, because we need to make that transition first, and we don't want to onboard a bunch of people just to immediately switch how they're doing what they're doing. So if you're currently a validator, definitely stay with us. I reached out last week asking all of our validators who wants to re-up with us into the next phase. And then expect more of an update once we make that Avalanche partnership transition for all of those who are currently waiting or who have applied. I know we've got, over 1,000 people who want to validate with LAMINA1 right now, which is completely awesome. But yeah, I mean, I guess in general, just stay tuned next week. Again, we're going to be having a more in-depth AMA about Avalanche next week where we can dive into a bunch more questions, but definitely wanted to address this because tons of community questions that we unfortunately don't have all the time to kind of get through. So we just went 10 minutes over. Thank you all so much for joining us for this session. Tons of really jam-packed information tight. I'll be writing a recap, an AMA recap, sharing this. I'm going to drop the secret code into the chat once again. You can redeem that for some XP on Zealy as always. And yeah, I guess, share and spread this information with community members far and wide, everyone who attended. Get ready for the launch of our studio tab and our first partner space this December, as well as next week's Avalanche education initiatives in AMA. And finally, Wednesday, stay tuned here on announcements and the Betanet Airdrop channel for our follow-up airdrop, which we currently have scheduled to drop this Wednesday, 11/29. It'll run through the end of this year, so you don't have any like crazy 1-week claim periods to stress us all out in the middle of the holidays, along with our next batch of quests. So thank you all so much for joining us. I know that this was a ton of information. We've definitely got more to share. And as always, I'll see you in the feeds and answer any questions that you guys may have. Really appreciate you joining us today. And thank you so much to Will, Gordon, and Rebecca also for joining us. This was really great.